Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 21 of the long and winding Royal Road. My name is W.H. Park, and this is the show that looks back at the greatest in-ring period of professional wrestling ever, at least in my opinion, and actually many other people's opinions. So that it's a kind of a favorite period of time for me. Like I'm always amazed going back and watching a lot of these matches and just like thinking, nothing tops this. This is so good. But so I want to talk a bit about episode 20 before we get into episode 21 here and introduce my guest here. But like episode 20 was our Jun Akiyama biography, which was very well received. And I want to say thank you to Mr. Eddie Kingston for tweeting out about the episode. And I think it got a lot more eyes on that particular episode of about Jun Akiyama and on the show in general. So thank you, Eddie. We hope to have you on the show in the future at some point. The invitation is out there. A lot of people were saying, "Hey, WH, you should see if he wants to be on the show." Well, the ball's in his court, so to speak. So we'll see if anything comes of that. But this is episode 21, and my special guest today is a contributor over at the Eastern Lariat, doing a lot of the podcasts with Dylan Fox and Striga. And he's also a really good follow over on Twitter. He's a big fan of matches that are under 20 minutes, which, hey, I'm a big supporter of that as well. And his name is Robert McCauley, but we just call him Rob. Rob, how are you?
WH, this is so great to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about, you do a lot of stuff with Dylan and Striga over the Eastern Layer, which is how I'm familiar with you, but also over on Twitter. You're very active over there on the wrestling Twitter sphere, for good or bad. Like, it's up to how you feel about wrestling Twitter. But I want to ask you to get started is talk about your history as a fan of, professional wrestling overall, but in particular for maybe like Japanese wrestling and then maybe even more focused on maybe all Japan Pro Wrestling of this era.
Well, I mean, as someone who grew up in the Attitude Era, I was you had to be all in. You were elementary school, like everybody's talking about wrestling. That's my entry point. About 12 years old, I'm like, oh, this wrestling thing is not very cool. Stop watching it. About 2012, there was a CM Punk documentary, Best in the World. And he was a straight edge guy. I'm also a guy who doesn't drink, doesn't do drugs. So I thought that was really cool. He's a punk rock guy. I like punk. And I'm like, okay, I'll get back into wrestling through this guy. 6 months later, he's out of WWE. I'm like, well, I mean, what's going on? But in that time of being a fan, I would, go on the Facebook pages and you'd be able to interact with all these fans. And everyone would say, hey, the best era of wrestling all time is the All Japan 90s. And, I just scoured YouTube looking through all these random matches. People say, oh, this is great. Oh, this is great. And I would agree that these are some really incredible matches, which would get me into the current Japanese scene. First it'd be 2014 New Japan. And then, following the indies a bit, I would find DG USA, which would bring me to Dragon Gate. And it kind of all snowballed from there. But, I'm not sure if today's, if you get into wrestling today, people look back at that All Japan time. 2012, that was a big deal. People being like, yes, wrestling is cool, but you need to be going back to this period. And I always agreed with them that it was some of the most insane match quality that you can find.
Yeah, and one thing some people will say about for example, let's say 2012, 2013 to maybe 2018 New Japan Pro Wrestling is what about that? And listen, it's great stuff, but most of that stuff is singles matches. There's very few, if any, great tag team matches that come out of New Japan in that period. Whereas in All Japan, you're getting not only these amazing singles matches, but you're also getting amazing tag team matches. You're also getting amazing 6-man tag team matches as well, which you don't necessarily get anything on the level of the Holy Demon Army versus Burning or versus Misawa and Kobashi in New Japan per se, or you're definitely not getting any 6-man tag matches that are the equivalent of Sarutogan versus Super Generation Army. So, you know what I mean? Like, to me, it's like, it's more well-rounded as far as that goes. That being said, All Japan does not have the junior division or the quality of junior matches that New Japan has. And that's always been kind of a blind spot for them in the Baba era. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, it's interesting when I talk to someone who comes to wrestling later than me, who's younger than me and then has come into wrestling in a different kind of avenue than me. Like, I started as a fan with the WWF after the first WrestleMania. And then by the time I'm in my university years, I'm like, whoa, what's this stuff from Japan? This is more what I'm into. I like the kind of the pure sports presentation that was in Japan at the time. And so I've always latched onto that. But yeah, so you are definitely someone who watches a lot of the All Japan of the 90s stuff then, Rob?
I try to. I mean, you mentioned being a part of the EASTERN Lariat. And, Dylan, he's just got an encyclopedic knowledge of everything. So through the years now of doing shows with him, off the air, it's a lot of talking about this era of wrestling, and he likes pushing me in this direction. And because of his conversations is why we landed on this match in particular, because he's a big fan of one of these men. I mean, all these men, but one of these men in particular.
One of these men in particular. So let's talk about the match that you picked for us to talk about today. Well, please introduce it.
This is No Fear of Takao Omori and Yoshihiro Takayama against Burning's Jun Akiyama and Kenta Kobashi.
And this is for the All Japan World Tag Team title. This is held on October 30th, 1999. It's part of the All Japan's October Giant Series tour. It's emanating from Budokan Hall, and the listed attendance for this is 16,300 people. This particular match was a semi-main event of this show. The main event saw Vader taking on Mitsuharu Misawa for the Triple Crown, and it's a match where Vader won the title, won the Triple Crown, I believe for the first time from Misawa. So it was very, very, a lot of big things happening on this show. But I think another reason why you picked this match was that it does come in under 20 minutes, and that's kind of like something you're kind of well known for over on wrestling Twitter, is like you really promote a lot of like your favorite matches that are under 20 minutes.
Yeah, it was kind of a joke thing at the beginning of the pandemic, and people latched on to it. Now I can't get away from it. I try to put up polls now. It's like, oh, should I abandon it? Everybody's like, nope, keep doing it. It's like, all right, well, guess it's my thing now.
No, but it's a good thing, because it's like, listen, I feel like I don't want to watch matches that are just long for the sake of being long. So like anything that's like 25 or under is like, and it's getting a lot of praise if I haven't seen it live, is like, yes, okay, I'm going to check that out for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said for a match that knows its confines and doesn't go beyond what it needs to be, which is exactly what this match is.
All right, so you wanted to talk about the background of this match, and in particular, like one particular person more than the others, and who would that be?
That would be Takao Omori. Dylan, I think he's long said that's like the only wrestling shirt he has that came from Japan itself. He's a big fan of Omori. And doing this project let me really dive into this man's career and find out why it is Dylan loves him so much. And I mean, it's so easy to tell why when you know Dylan in particular, right? Big fan of Yoshihashi, kind of one of those guys who never got his due and really had to work hard for it. And Omori has a very similar background of, he was in the same class as Akiyama, but he wasn't pushed at all up until this 99 run. And I was 7 years into his career by that point.
Just taking a sip of water. I also think that, like Dylan being a big fan of like early 2000s 01, and Omori was like such a big part of that era of 01 was probably another reason why he's a big fan of Omori. But, speaking of like Dylan's love for Takao Omori, he does talk about that t-shirt. I remember hearing him talk about the t-shirt. Sometimes I think he's a fan of him because of that t-shirt, because it's the only t-shirt he has from Japan.
That's entirely possible too.
That's very Dylan as well, maybe. I know he's going to be listening to this and thinking, no, that's not. I'm not like that at all. Well, you are, Dylan. Just letting you know. It's nothing against that. That's perfectly fine. But tell us a bit about Takao Omori then in your research Rob?
Well, like I said, he was in that same class as Akiyama. Akiyama immediately, within months, right, was in the Real World Tag League with Taue. And Omori, he had nobody. Akiyama, for the carnival that year, gets hurt before he can even have his first match. It was like the prelim. And by the time he comes back to injury, they heat him up by tagging him with Omori. So these two were able to have this great run with Omori always under him. And that kind of feeds into Omori's career up until this point of being that guy that's always under Akiyama. Akiyama famously never really got the big rub in All Japan, but Omori especially, he was definitely under Akiyama. And this 1999 run where he eventually gets this push up, he's able to pay dividends, right? Because you see in 1999, the fans vote for Omori and Akiyama to headline the Budokan. Omori's first ever main event, it was a fan vote thing, went over Misawa matches, went over Kobashi matches. They wanted to see Akiyama and Omori because it was something fresh. They had all these matches with all these, same guys for many years. And this was just a natural rivalry. Akiyama was hot. People wanted to see him, but also Omori. It's not like they just put him against some scrub. Omori had big fan reaction, big support. And it felt like this was really going to be something for Omori. And unfortunately, 2 years later, it's just not really the case. But he was just always that guy underneath. He never had a stable partner. He wasn't working under the Holy Demon Army all that much. He wasn't working under Baba too much. He was always just kind of that rookie for hire who never really had his footing. Even with that team with Akiyama was still teaming with the Burning Guys. It's it was just the All Asia run. It was, house show stuff. And once Akiyama takes off to start teaming with Misawa and then later Kobashi, it's Omori has nobody. So, he has Stan Hansen, he has Tamon Honda, and eventually they link up with Takayama, who, similar route with him coming. He couldn't find a stable partner. He was coming in off the Kingdom run after UWFI. And it was just a perfect pairing and the perfect time for All Japan to be okay, these are two guys we haven't exhausted matches with. Let's put them in here and push them to the moon. Within 6 months of them first teaming together in the 98 Tag League, they're going against the Holy Demon Army and beating them. Beating them in Budokan, clean. I think it was a 13-minute match. So they were very quick to be we have something with these guys. We need to do something with people. We have something with these two. Let's push them hard into the moon to where they were the first team that did the whole double championship deal. They had the All Asia and the Real World titles at the same time, which never done. I don't think it's happened since either. So it's just this really weird period in retrospect because it didn't really pay off, especially for Omori. It sounded like a blip on the radar of All Japan and Omori's career. But there was this 2-3 year run where it really felt like this could be a guy.
Yeah, I do think in context, you have to look at 98 and 99 as being that transition period before the eventual split of most of the roster to form Pro Wrestling Noah that, Misawa is going to be being groomed to be the booker. And I think there's a thought on his part, I have to get the next generation ready. Me, Kawada, Taue, and Kobashi are hitting our limits, and especially him. Misawa himself is knows he's really at a point in his career where he's breaking down. And just so people will understand, in Noah, he didn't want to be the ace necessarily. He had to be the ace, but eventually he was going to pass it off to Kobashi, and then Kobashi's history with injuries screwed all that up. And then and there's just it's a domino effect in Noah. So people who say, oh, he just pushed himself in Noah. He didn't. He reluctantly pushed himself in Noah. If you do any research about Misawa, which I have done so, But here, I think it's an interesting period in 1999, especially because you do get this push of Omori and Takayama, which I think was designed to kind of fill in that void of that big bruising tag team that's usually filled by like foreign tag teams like the Road Warriors or the Miracle Violence Connection. But you don't really have anyone with the kind of, like Dr. Death is still there, but he's kind of broken down as well. And so, like you don't necessarily have this big bruising foreign tag team that's coming into All Japan that's any good. I mean, they brought people in that are big bruiser type of wrestlers, but they're not very good. But you have like Omori, he's a very big guy. Takayama, very big guy. Put them together, it's like they look pretty impressive, and so they kind of filled that void that was left by the the dissolution of the Miracle Violence Connection. And I also think like the plan was like Omori and Takayama were going to be like the new kind of Holy Demon Army, in the sense of like they're going to kind of be heels in the company. They're going to be Japanese heels towards the other members of the roster, and like the other people that were going to get pushed. As far as I could tell before the split, was going to be Akiyama for sure, and Manokea Mossman, who eventually becomes Taiokeya when the split does happen. But I think like he's paired with Akiyama around this time as his tag team partner, because Akiyama does leave Burning. He leaves Kobashi's on the mentorship, so to speak, and he kind of strikes out on his own, because I think there's a deliberate idea that he's got to be his own guy. He can't be like the second to Kobashi or Misawa anymore. He has to be his own guy. And we see that happening in the first year of Noah, that he's pushed as a top guy, as a leader of his own faction. I think that would have happened if the split didn't happen. And we see the seeds of that with Mossman and him as a tag team together. But it's one of my big what ifs, Rob, like what if the split never happened, that, and like, what if Wrestle One split never happened with the more recent All Japan? That's my other big what if in professional wrestling. But I want to talk a bit about the team as a whole. So as you were saying, Yoshihiro Takayama, who would later gain fame as a single star, he became the star that you thought Omori might have become, because he was actually a true-born All Japan, and thus it's kind of a true-born Noah guy. But like, we'll talk about some of the reasons why he never got that. There's a particular incident that happened in Noah that's probably the reason why Omori never got pushed in Pro Wrestling Noah and eventually left. But no fear, they formed in the fall of 1998. They were kind of a subset, like a kind of a they were paired with Gary Albright in the Triangle of Power. That didn't last very long, though. Albright eventually just started doing his own things. I think mainly with Dr. F. Steve Williams and some of the other foreign talent being brought in. No Fear won the All Asia Tag Team titles from Jinsei Shinzaki and Hayabusa on June 4th of 1999. And a month later, on July 23rd, they would win the World Tag Team Championships from Johnny Ace and Bart Gunn, to become the first team, as you said, Rob, to hold both titles at the same time. In Pro Wrestling Noah, they were the GHC Tag Champions by winning those belts from Misawa and Yoshinari Ogawa on December 9th. And then they would break up, mainly because like Omori got in the doghouse, because like for some reason a match he was having with Shinya Hashimoto didn't go the way it was planned. It ended early. Many people speculate it's because Shinya Hashimoto was like shooting on him, or like really stiffing him to the point where it's like, I cannot continue. This guy is killing me literally in this match. So he ended it. He embarrassed Pro Wrestling Noah. He embarrassed Misawa. So Misawa then sent him to the United States to work for Harley Race. And then he never was brought back to Japan. And then he was doing the Indies. Then he went to 0-1. Then he went to New Japan. And then
Misawa said he never sent him on excursion.
Well, yeah, I mean, but he did, because like you can see he worked for Harley Race's MLW. What was it? What was Harley's promotion called in Missouri? I forget. Not MLW. That's fucking Court Bauer's promotion. Anyways, he was sent there. There's records of it. He won titles. He won the title. He came back to Japan. Noah wasn't going to take him back. He was so in the doghouse. He went to 0-1. He went to New Japan, teamed with Manabu Nakanishi And eventually he made his way back to All Japan, where, like at first he was rivals again with returning Jun Akiyama. Then they would, be paired off both as partners and as rivals. They've won the World Tag Team titles in All Japan. They've been, like Omori won his first and only Champions Carnival by beating Akiyama in the finals. And he's had a very interesting career. I understand why Dylan likes him so much. One, I think it's that underdog thing about Omori. But I do think, like if you watch Omori's work, he's a very good wrestler. He has very good timing. He has a decent moveset. And hey, that Axe Bomber is a pretty good fucking lariat for what it is. And it does it way better than the, that Terry guy who was using it in New Japan in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, I mean, Omori, very impressive. You brought up his size before. He just an imposing figure. You see him next to Takayama, and there's really not that much of a difference. And Takayama's considered, one of the bigger wrestlers to come through Japan.
Yeah, and one thing I do like urge people to do is like check out No Fear matches. They're fun. They're a breath of fresh air. See the other stuff that's going on in the company at this time, and yeah, like I think Omori and Takayama, like all things being equal, if Noah didn't happen, they would have been pushed to the moon, and I think would have become like in that mix with Akiyama for sure in the top end of All Japan leading up into the 2000s and maybe the 2010s, but so we're going to talk about this tag team title match from Budokan Hall. Before we do that, I do want to recommend people watch for added context for this match, Robert. I want to talk about this match that happened on July 4th of 1999 at Korakuen Hall. It's a tag match between No Fear against Kenta Kobashi and another member of Burning, Kentaro Shiga. And this adds context for like a lot of the like Kobashi's interactions, especially with Yoshihiro Takayama, is that so you have to understand like Takayama, like Kobashi has an injured face. He's wearing like a nose guard. He kind of looks like Mankind from the WWF with this mask on. And so like No Fear just have no compunctions about going after his injured nose, his face. And this like plays into this match now in October. And this is really great long-term storytelling. And like so I do, it's out there on YouTube. Go check out No Fear versus Kenta Kobashi and Kentaro Shiga, July 4th, 1999 at Korakuen Hall. It adds a lot of context to this match here on October 30th at Budokan Hall. So have you seen that match, by the way?
I have.
So you know what I'm talking about. Like there's they just, like Kobashi wants to get his hands on these guys, especially Takayama in this match because of the July 4th match.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of, you brought up the Mankind thing. It's kind of like what basketball players wear. You don't want people messing with your face. No,
and I believe it was a legit injury.
Yeah.
So, not that they're trying to injure him for real, obviously not. But like, it's a great way to get heat is just go after someone's legit injury, even though like, and in Japan at the time, it's like kayfabe was alive and well. So they think No Fear, like Takayama is like legit trying to kick Kobashi's nose off in this match. And it's
and he's not like an All Japan Trueborn. Like if Omori's doing it, maybe a different reaction. Takayama going after him, it's like, well, what the hell are you doing?
Well, there is that kind of like added context for sure. All right, let's get to this match from October 30th, 1999, Budokan Hall. No Fear taking on Burning for the World Tag Team titles. No Fear enter first. I like their entrance. So if people have never seen No Fear, they just have this really great tandem entrance where they just, like they're holding each other's shoulders together and they're just walking together, pointing. I love the No Fear point. You
remember that movie Hocus Pocus with how the witches walk when they first come out?
I don't, but maybe there's someone listening who does.
Yeah, I mean the Sanderson sisters come out and their arms are linked and they're doing that same walk you see No Fear do.
And also, like, they had the greatest call, No Fear. That if anyone's ever played Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, you can do that taunt with the taunt control on that game. It's just fucking awesome, by the way. Then, No Fear enter the ring, and then we hear the strains of one of the greatest theme songs in all of professional wrestling, and that is Grand Sword. And then the tag champions, Burning, enter Budokan Hall. And, while the strains of Grand Sword are playing, we hear the audience in Budokan chant, Kobashi, Kobashi, Kobashi. It's fucking amazing. I love this song.
Oh, I mean, it's contender for best of all time.
A lot of people love Spartan X, and it's a great song, Masao's theme. I like Grand Sword just a little bit more than Spartan X. But okay, at this point, Rob, I have to talk about it. I sent you a private message about this. Like we get a good shot of like Omori's hair here. And you have to people who've seen Omori recently might think, oh, he's blonde, he dyes his hair blonde. Actually, in the 90s, he kept his hair black. So did Takayama, because I think also a lot of people associate Takayama with having blonde hair. But Takayama just has this natural black hair, and it's kind of a typical like Japanese dude's, the 1990s haircut that he has. But Omori, to me, I was just like, what is going on with this dude's hair? You know what it looks like? It looks like if someone straightened out a Brillo pad and stuck it on his fucking head. That's what it looks like to me.
It almost looks braided, doesn't it?
It looks like it looks like a perm gone wrong. That's what it looks like. You know what I mean? Like seriously, yeah. I was like, is he?
It looks like it'd feel weird. Yeah.
It looks like he could clean like debris off of like a fucking dish or something. You know what I mean? That's stuck
I'm sure that's how Masawa was using them near the end. So.
Well, yeah. Like when you don't do a match that's supposed to go as planned, it throws off all your plans. Maybe like that's gonna.
And Hashimoto had something to prove at that time too.
Maybe, yeah, like Hashimoto.
That was his first match outside of New Japan with all that,
Yeah, I think I remember that. Man, I haven't seen it in a long time. I have to go look for it. I think he's legit like kicking the shit out of him.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. I don't blame Omori at all.
No, but hey, you know who did blame him? Masawa.
And that matters more than us.
Yeah, they're it's interesting with like No Fear. They were kind of pushed as heels in the company, and so there are like some very audible boos for No Fear, which is really cool to hear. But also, again, in all Japan, not the most common thing not the most typical thing you're going to hear from the audience are boos from them.
Yeah, you get the boos. There's definitely still support for Omori. I mean, it's nowhere near the level of Burning, but it was cool too to be like, we understand, why you chose this route. I mean, you've been scrapping all this time. Now is your opportunity. You got to make the most of it.
There are, like you said, there's massive pops for Akiyama and especially Kobashi. This is like his peak, I feel. Like 97 to 99, I think is his in-ring peak for me. And like just his popularity is just through the roof. Because everyone knows like, okay, he's the guy. After Masawa, he's going to be the ace. It's not going to be Kawada, unfortunately. It's going to be Kobashi. And for a reason, because like the fans love Kenta Kobashi because he's so fucking awesome. But yeah, this match has got a ton of heat in it right away, and it's helped by the fact that Kobashi just wants to start the match. He wants No Fear, particularly Takayama, and of course, again, watch the July 4th match that I just mentioned from Korakuen Hall. Akiyama has to try to kind of keep Kobashi calm. He's like, let me go, and then, but it's all a ruse, Rob. Because it's all a ruse. Because then, as soon as like No Fear's back is turned, he drop kicks Omori into Takayama, and this match is fucking on.
And it doesn't stop.
No, it's a great pace. No, it's a great. Akiyama follows up with this drop kick. He follows up with a jumping knee and hits Takayama with a drop kick that sends him to the floor. And this crowd is now fired up. It's a really hot start to this match, and it's a nice change of pace. Again, this is kind of maybe a theme we're gonna be going on about. It's like how fresh this kind of these some of the participants in this main event, semi-main event matches with Takayama and Omori, but also like kind of the style is a fresh change because you don't really get too many hot starts to matches in All Japan. It does tend to be kind of a feeling out process that builds and builds and builds to the crescendo. But this is like right off the bat, super hot start.
Yeah, and it feels earned, like you mentioned, with the build-up to it, too. Why would they have a lockup to start? Takayama's an asshole.
Exactly.
Or he's betraying them by siding with this guy.
Also, like no fear of getting pushed. So like they take them seriously. Like Akiyama and Kobashi take them seriously. Like these guys have a very excellent chance of dethroning us as the world tag team champions. So they want to kind of get the upper hand on these guys, as well as like putting a hurting on them as well. Kobashi tags into a massive pop. There's a double shoulder tackle with Kobashi and Akiyama, and then onto Omori, and then Kobashi lays in some knees to Omori's guts and goes for a suplex. But Takayama puts a stop to that with a kick to the back. Takayama then
great amount of booze for that one.
Oh, he was great, yeah. It's like, why are you doing that? That's what you would do if you were him. You would do the same thing, save your partner from the suplex.
Definitely.
Takayama boots Akiyama in the face and hits his awesome knee lift. I love the Takayama knee lift. It's so fucking great,
especially when sold as well as these guys sell it.
Oh, they were like, okay, this is one of your big moves. Okay. It's like getting hit with, it's like getting hit with Kobashi's lariat almost. Not a finisher necessarily, but they treat it like the same as Misawa's like one of Misawa's tiger drivers or his elbows or Kobashi's lariat or something like that. Then No Fear double teams Kobashi with stomps and a series of elbow drops. There's a control segment on Kobashi by Omori. And then Takayama tags in and he does this really great move where it's kind of like a hanging sleeper hold on Kobashi, like while he's sitting on the top turnbuckle and he's like lifting Kobashi up from the ground. And so
I wish the camera got that better.
Yeah, it's but I think for the audience,
we know what happened.
For the audience in the crowd, they can see clearly that like this guy is like he's the noose is Takayama's arms. That's the noose, right? He's hanging this dude. He's not just putting a sleeper on the bed. He's like doing something really, really severe and illegal for sure. And they don't want to see their hero in this predicament. So like he's definitely getting getting the audibly told off by the crowd for doing this stuff. Takayama boots Kobashi in the face a couple of times and goes for some stunts, but you know what? Kobashi's like had enough. He gets pissed off by this point and then fires off a loud, vicious chop as he gets up to Takayama's chest. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, that just a big old flurry of chops, right? Omori, I mean, he understands, like, Takayama can't be taking this shit from Kobashi. I love the cutoffs of this match. They're very quick to be like, we cannot let Akiyama and Kobashi start teeing off on us. We have to keep control. Yeah,
from this, though, it's a back and forth between Kobashi and Takayama. Kobashi hitting the chops and Takayama kind of retaliating with forearms. Takayama is able to gain the upper hand by running through a chop. Like he basically, Kobashi chops him as he hits the ropes. He runs through that, and then he ends up booting Kobashi to the face. But this time, this boot to the face keeps him down. The thing with Takayama is like I think he was kind of being positioned because his style is very similar to Kawada as being kind of like that shooter kicking type of wrestler that would kind of be like very similar to like how Kawada was pushed in the ring.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I've never considered those two, but I mean, we know what they thought of Kawada, so if you're going to be moving on with Takayama here, that's a great...
I think he filled that role, though, in Noah. You know what I mean? Like, that style of wrestler, like him.
Never thought of that before, but you mentioned that. It's like, oh, yeah, that's clearly what they were going for.
Kenta was that in the junior division, but definitely Takayama in the heavyweight division, Noah, was like, okay, we need someone who's like Kobashi, like Kawada. Yeah, let's get Takayama. He basically wrestles a very similar style to Kawada, and we don't have Kawada, so we'll push Takayama. There's a jumping knee from Takayama, a boot to the face again, and then another great knee lift. In my notes, it's all caps, Rob, because this knee lift is amazing. When you guys watch this match, and hopefully you've watched this first and then are listening to this, that you'll know what I'm talking about with this knee lift. There's then a high kick to Akiyama, which knocks Akiyama to the floor. No fear, being extremely dominant in this match so far.
Yeah, I mean, it gets to the point, where Kobashi he starts getting upset, and he's pushing the referee aside, and Akiyama had to come in to reset the nerves, and it's just really cool to see how fired up these guys were. I mean, you mentioned like just how fresh everything feels here. This was so abnormal for a match to start this hot. And I mean, writing out notes for this match, I didn't stop. I had no time to stop typing for the whole thing. It's like 17 minutes of just going. Like,
yeah, we'll get to the spot you mentioned, which is like trying to get Kobashi off of Takayama, but before that, there's these Takayama's hitting these repeated boots to the face, and it serves no purpose other than to like awaken this sleeping giant that's in Kobashi. He's so pissed off in this match. It's great. Excuse me. Kobashi fires back with some chops to the neck, and then does a series of rolling, and then a rolling chop to the face, and then he just does a series of these rolling chops and to Takayama's head while he's in the corner, to the point, Omori tries to save his partner, but Kobashi gives him some of the same medicine he's giving Takayama for good measure. Then, he goes back to Takayama's head again with the rolling chops. And this, the referee for this match just goes in and tries to break this up, because it's like, whoa, you're going to kill this guy because you're the amount of
Takayama's ducking it. Kabashi's like, no, we're not done yet.
No, we're not done. He's and then, the referee tries to get him in between, but Kobashi, nah, fuck you. He throws him aside. And then this brings in Akiyama. He's like, whoa, dude. Like, you can't be throwing the referee around. Then he tries to come in and try to stop Kobashi from committing murder on Takayama, which really goes to show you like the amount of like, the animosity. It's a great way to show like Kobashi is the one who wants to like kill these guys, not Akiyama necessarily. He wants to beat them, but Kobashi wants to like just take them out of wrestling forever.
It really is incredible.
Omori then takes this opportunity while Akiyama is holding Kobashi back to dropkick Kobashi from out of nowhere, which is a nice callback to what Akiyama did at the beginning of this match. Akiyama attacks and gets met with an axe bomber for his troubles. Great looking lariat, his own version of that move. I have my notes right now. This match is fucking great so far. I'm really digging this match, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched it, I think 5 times since, we first talked about doing this match, and every time just loving it more and more.
Omori presses an attack on Akiyama on the floor, including DDTing him with the floor mat removed. Kobashi rushes in to make the save, though, but Omori reverses Kobashi into the guardrail. Omori drops repeated knees to Akiyama's neck, I think with the knee pad down, and then hits a pile driver on him. Takayama hits a high kick to Akiyama's face, and then nails with a stiff kick to the back. He then boots Kobashi off the apron for good measure. There's a leg drop, and he goes for one of those arrogant 1-foot pin that pisses Kobashi off. And,
second time he did it in this match too. It's like,
yeah,
son of a bitch.
and you know what? I don't know if the referee for this match is not Kyo Iwata. I forget the guy's name, but he's a referee that would be be one of the big refs in Pro Wrestling Noah later on. But like these, like I don't know, like if Kobashi, if Kyo Iwata would have counted this pin.
Yeah, he may have waved that one off.
He hates that pin, and I'm not a big fan of it, but I would have counted it because it's like, to me, contact. If you have contact with the guy and with your opponent and they're on their back, then you count it as a pin. But yeah. Anyways, again, something that pisses Kobashi off once more. No Fear taunts and disrespects Kobashi. Omori tags in and lays in a series of uppercuts, one of his signature moves. No Fear hit their own double shoulder tackle. Not as good as the burning one, but it's kind of a go-to double team move here in All Japan. There's a full Nelson slam followed by a top rope elbow from Omori to Akiyama, but Akiyama is able to kick out at 2. And then they hit their double team power bomb, but Kobashi makes a save. And interestingly enough, he then gets booed by the fans in Budokan for breaking up this pin attempt.
Yeah, it's not a big boo, but it's a noticeable boo. People being like, hey.
Well, to the point, the announcer's like, oh, booing for Kobashi? Wow. But I guess they really wanted to see a decisive win from this double team powerbomb, which is kind of like the signature finisher from No Fear.
I get it from Kobashi. I mean, they're breaking shit up. Why can't I be breaking shit up?
Yeah, like it's not like you never seen Kobashi make the save in a match involving like Kawada and Taue as the opponents, or like, Johnny Ace and I don't know, fucking Wolf Hawkfield or something, like, so what's the big deal? I don't know.
I mean, it's Omori. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there was a connection there.
They wanted to see that win. They wanted to see these guys get elevated. No Fear gets the upper hand until Akiyama ducks out of a Takayama boot and he hits Omori instead. So like there's kind of a misfire there between teammates. Kobashi is able to tag in and hits Takayama with a flying shoulder tackle. Beautiful move from Kobashi. Omori gets a dose of Kobashi's chops, including a short burst of his machine gun chops, not the extended version of that particular move.
No, not extended.
Omori reverses a powerbomb attempt. Kobashi ducks under a spinning back kick and is able to hit a rolling kick to the stomach and hits a standing leg drop and then follows up with a powerbomb. And I got to make a note of this, like Omori's, kind of spinning back kick. For a guy his size, he's a very, very agile man.
Yeah, I mean, and his body goes flying on that kick he misses.
Yeah, he just like kind of clears. It's like it's a miracle he didn't go out to the floor outside of the ring. Excuse me. Omori reverses a Health Nelson suplex attempt and is finally able to hit his spinning back kick. Takayama tags in and hits a beautiful running drop kick on Kobashi. Again, like so agile for a man of his size. No comment there, Rob, about the agility of Takayama?
Yeah, I mean, I guess at this point, nothing surprises me. I mean, these guys have been going so hard the entire match. It's like, oh, why can't he hit this great fucking drop kick?
That's right. Takayama then goes for a sleeper hold. Takayama then transitions it into like a crossface of sorts. I call it like a one-arm Rings of Saturn, what he puts him in.
Yeah, and it was interesting seeing, him go back to a more submission-based thing after a lot of clobbering.
That's right. Well, I mean, it's kind of like, he gets come from UWFI, right? So,
but this does seem like something that he was leaving out of his repertoire as No Fear tags were going on. I mean, when they won those All Asia against Hayabusa and Shinzaki, saw a lot of that. In this match, there was very little. This was like the one spot.
So, Kobashi's in this submission hold, and this prompts Akiyama to come in to help, but to help out Kobashi. But Takayama hits. And then No Fear double teams Kobashi, including a bunch of sandwich axe bombers. So basically, Takayama hits Kobashi from the front with a lariat, and then at the same time, simultaneously, Omori hits Kobashi in the back of the head with his axe bomber. Looks great. I'm just trying to find my place in my notes. Takayama hits a nice jumping lariat onto Kobashi as well from the top rope. Akiyama gets the upper hand on No Fear. He hits a dragon screw leg whip, but it's met with a Takayama boot to the face as soon as he gets up. And then there's another big knee lift to the midsection. And we're basically at the crescendo of this match here, Robert.
Crowd goes big with the stomping on this near fall.
Takayama then signals for the Everest German, but thankfully Akiyama makes a save. He then hits a running knee to Kobashi that sends him 5 feet into the air. I don't know literally, but it looked like it was like 5 into the air. And then he goes for the pin. There's a 1, there's a 2, but Kobashi kicks out. And this crowd is just loving all the false finishes that we're getting so far in this match. Takayama hits a jumping knee, but Kobashi fires back with a lariat and stuns Omori with a chop. And then Akiyama hits an exploder suplex on Omori. Kobashi grabs Takayama by the hair. Thankfully not by Omori, because he might have cut his hands on the Brillo pad stiffness of Omori's hair if he did that with Omori. But he grabs Takayama by the hair and sends him into the future with the burning lariat for the 1, 2, and 3. And, Kobashi Akiyama burning retains the World Tag Team titles in 14 minutes and 54 seconds. It's less than 15 minutes, Rob.
Yeah, and, it's matches like this that, you can just keep on repeating. I mean, the action never stops. You can just keep it on an infinite loop, and it's just, man, I mean, I can't tell you the last time I've had so much fun watching a match. Like this You were mentioning off air how down we feel on current wrestling. This will get you reinvigorated on what wrestling should be all about.
Yeah, just like as far as an in-ring presentation, for sure, for sure. I did think it was really interesting, like matches of involving the World Tag Team titles would usually go minimum 20 minutes, like at the very least, and I thought there might have been more pin attempts in this match going in, but it's pretty much like this is like maybe the second or third pin attempt in this match, and Kobashi gets it easily, not with his like ultra finisher. He finishes off Takayama with one of his more standard finishes, which don't get me wrong, like getting hit with that lariat, it does not look like it's fun. It looks like it will like knock you out for sure. But like say for example he's in there with Kawada or Taue or Misawa, he wouldn't have pinned them. I feel he would have gone to like the burning hammer or some other finisher of his that to take them out. But like with Takayama, he's not at that level yet, so he gets pinned with the standard finisher, the burning lariat from Kobashi for 1, 2, 3. Great match. I liked it that it did not go 20 minutes. So that being said, when I was researching it over on Cage Match, there's some people who are like in their ratings are like, I would have gone higher if it was a little bit longer. And I don't feel like I would have done that. I might have gone lower. Like if it was a little bit longer, like maybe 5 minutes longer with consistent story going into the finish, sure. But I think it was fine for what it was. What are your thoughts?
I mean, if you were to extend it, you'd have to tell a completely different match. Like we're going to go another 5 minutes at this pace. Like no, you would need to restructure everything. I think for what they wanted to do, this was perfect. I mean, I've mentioned it over and over again now that it really was incredible to me that they never took any time like to reset or nothing. It was just like they knew exactly what they were doing all the way through and just told an intense story that, yeah, Takayama didn't get the big move to take him out. But, this was an out of nowhere type of build, and it was enough. I mean, it felt earned. You don't blame Takayama for not kicking out of this one.
No, of course not. And he, like I said, he's not at that level yet.
Yeah.
At this point in his career, he would get there, obviously, following his big push in Noah. And obviously after his pride stuff, especially the match with Don Fry. But yeah, it's fine for what it is. I think also like in retrospect, there's a theory I have that maybe they were going to try to re-educate the fans that matches don't have to go more than 20 minutes to in title matches or things in the semi-main event to be entertaining. And like, fans were used to like these matches going 30 minutes plus, or 20 plus minutes, 20 to 30 minutes in these main events. So like they wouldn't necessarily buy into like false finishes per se. I think if you have a match that ends with this kind of finish in under 15 minutes, that's a great way to kind of educate your audience that, hey, finishes can come in any time. And I also famously want to, talk about the match that Omori has. I think it's in the Champions Carnival where he pins Akiyama after, like, I believe an axe bomber, right? And it's like in the first 3 minutes of the match.
It's 7 seconds.
7 seconds. There you go.
He pulls the referee in front of him to distract Akiyama and then gets Akiyama with the axe bomber.
And then he
first ever win against Akiyama. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember reading that result. And I remember listening to Live Audio Wrestling at the time. And it was hosted by, at that time, was like Jeff Merrick and Dan Lavransky. And they were both like, this is a great finish. And the reason why it's a great finish is because, okay, one is Champion Carnival. So you don't need to, it's not the finals of it. It's a qualifying. It's like a rounds match, right? So you can do finishes like this. But then again, it tells you, like, when Omori faces Akiyama again, if he hits him with the axe bomber, it tells you two things. One, the match can end at any time, which is great. I think fans should be educated about that. Two, if he hits him with the axe bomber, there's a good chance that Akiyama is going down for the pin again.
Yeah, it's a great re-education. We do have to factor in, these guys are still, they're not the Misawa level. I don't think Misawa is going to be losing a tag in 15 minutes. type deal. But it is good to be using these younger guys to have a new approach. I mean, these guys know the big toll this is taking, wrestling all these 45-minute championship matches all the time. It's like, no, if we can get people just a lot of action in 15 rather than killing ourselves for 45, the fans won't get burned out. We'll feel a little bit better. Like, it's not going to kill us as hard. So I think it's ultimately a good call.
Yeah, I mean, I speak for myself, obviously. I don't know what your opinion is, but like, I will take a good, 20-minute match or under, as long as it makes sense and I'm satisfied with like the story that was told to me, rather than like an overly long, 30+ minute match. Like, I don't know how many times, like in recent New Japan, particularly, you see these matches go long for the sake of going long. And it's like, you could have finished this like 5-10 minutes ago. And why didn't you? Like, now I'm like regretting watching this because like, I just feel like I'm not interested. I've lost my interest in the match. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's better to retain the fans' interest and then have the finish happen at the peak of their interest, rather than like have their interest and then slowly but surely in the last kind of quarter of the match, the last third of the match, lose people's interest because it's like, well, like, why is it so long?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for just how much wrestling is available now that we get burned out by. But also, I mean, the fans going to these shows, they're seeing all these long matches. You got to wonder, how big of a toll it's taking on them, being like, okay, well, we know in the first 20 minutes a pin's not happening. So what are we doing? We're just going to sit on our hands and just, wait for that 25-minute for the
seats at wrestling shows are not comfortable. Let's just say that the live experience, seats at wrestling shows are not comfortable. The upper deck of Budokan is probably some of the most comfortable seats, but that was like, 3 years ago. This is like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it was like in the 90s, but like floor seats are not comfortable. Like, they never are. So I don't want to be like, and people are there for like 2+ hours, getting up to go to the washroom or getting food or during the intermission, whatever, that's fine. But like, I can tell you from experience, I do not want to be sitting there for 3+ hours at a show. Like, I will start, I will lose my interest, and like you run the risk of burning out a significant portion of your audience. So anyways, I don't want this necessarily to become a rant about like long matches or anything like that. But I do think my point being is like, there is an argument to be made for having like things like a semi-main event or even a main event go less than 20 minutes. And this is like kind of playing into your gimmick, as it were, Rob. But I do actually believe that, like, educate the fans that a match can end anytime, and you'll get more heat and a bigger pop for when you do false finishes.
Just treat the fans like their time means something. If you're going to do something big and grand, I mean, make it something that is going to be memorable. If you're just killing time, they're going to be wondering what the hell they're doing there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, with that, do you have any final thoughts about this match or about any of the participants?
Well, I mean, what would you say is Omori's peak in his career? Is it the Carnival a couple months later?
No, I think his peak comes like after Noah. Yeah. I think his peak is like when he's the top dog in 01, like his in-ring peak. I think also like his return to All Japan, there's a lot of great stuff there with Akiyama, against Akiyama, but against like, I love the Get Wild tag team he has with Manabu Soya. Yeah. I think that's a great period of his career. It's difficult to say with him in this original run of All Japan, because it gets cut short with the split with Noah, right? So, and he never got to take off in Noah because of the match with Hashimoto and being in the doghouse, and then like to the point where like he's not invited back. I always thought like it was surprising that he went to 01. I thought he should have gone to All Japan back there, because they could have used him, and then I'm pretty sure they would have welcomed him back.
Well, he's back by 04, right? He has that match with Kawada for the Triple Crown.
Yeah, but even before that, like, but he's not there
like
consistently.
0203.
You know what I mean? Like, he's not there consistently. It's not because then he does the run. He does the Wild Child thing with Nakanishi over in New Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just to me is it's like weird that it takes him so long to kind of just become a permanent member of the All Japan roster again. By the time Muto's in charge of the company, so yeah, I don't know, but that to me is like kind of his peak, in my opinion. I mean, I'm sure there's people who might have differing thoughts about it.
Yeah, I mean, because watching that Carnival final he has with Kobashi a couple months after this, it's just one of those big wrestling what if stories. It's like, what if Omori wasn't in the doghouse? Is kind of the big conclusion I came out of watching all these matches.
Yeah, I do think like he would have been up there with Akiyama as an All Japan Trueborn, as a native wrestler, to be pushed to not the same level. Like if Akiyama's Misawa, like if we're gonna make an analogy with like the four pillars, like like Akiyama by the 2000s, close to 2000, the 2010s, Akiyama would have been the ace of the company. He would have been the Misawa. And I think, there's a good chance either Takayama or Omori would have been the Kawada. He would have been the 1B, I think Omori had a better chance because he was the Trueborn. And, like if you know anything about Japanese companies, they do tend to prefer people who start off in their dojo system and get pushed that way rather than someone who comes from someplace else. Not that doesn't happen. Of course it happens, but I think Omori would have been given more chances and a stronger push than Takayama would have if the split didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, you bringing up the comparison of Kawada and Takayama has me thinking, I mean, maybe Omori is like a Taue, right? Like he doesn't get many opportunities, but he's going to be that solid foundation tag guy who's clearly has the fan support for those big matches.
No, but I think if the split didn't happen, and Omori never got in the doghouse, that Omori would have gotten the 1B push. He would have been positioned in the same position like that Kawada eventually ended up in All Japan, right? But I think the thing with Takayama is why he gets the push he does is because like he goes off and gets, he goes off famous. And he there's the pride stuff, He becomes famous in pride, and then like that cements his place in all of wrestling in Japan. That we have to push this guy because he had this legend. He's a household name because of like the beating he endured at the hands of Don Fry and other people in Pride. So, that has nothing to do necessarily with wrestling. I like Takayama. I think he's a great wrestler and he deserves all the success he's ever achieved in his career. And it's a tragedy what happened to him. I'm just glad he's alive and recovering, but it's a tragedy how his career ended. But yeah, like Omori, I think would have got the push. Like I think being put in the Champions Carnival final with Kobashi was a sign of like the faith and the faith they had in him and like that where they saw him being, which was a 1B type of character.
If only it played out that way.
If only. Well, wrestling is always like that. What if this happened with someone I liked and things like that? But yeah, any other final thoughts there?
No, I mean, I just highly recommend people check this out. I mean, you mentioned before my 20-minute gimmick. This is just right in my lane of matches that, when you first came to me about doing the show, the first match that came to mind was the Holy Demon Army against Hayabusa and Shinzaki. But I saw that you had done, like, I think it was like a burning match against them, so I didn't want to do that. But that's like a similar case of just a real compact, maybe a little more under the radar, a little less known than some of the bigger classic tag matches that I think quality is just as great.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you picked this match because it is the first time we are talking about No Fear and either Takayama or Omori. So, like, it's always nice to get like kind of fresh names in to the mix on the show. So it's great that you picked this match. But yeah, Rob, where can people find more of your work if they've enjoyed your appearance on the long and winding railroad here? Yeah,
if you enjoyed what I have to say, you can find me on Twitter at @BMcCauley. Just a lot of match recommendations is my thing. Like everybody else, I have a spreadsheet that I publicly put out. And matches from all over the place, mostly Japanese promotions, but I cover all of them I can find. And I even provide the links in there if you don't know where to find something. You can easily access and find out, what I'm going crazy about at the moment.
Sounds good. And as well, like we said before, you also do a lot of contributions over at Eastern Lariat.
Yes, always over there, especially on the Patreon. You can catch me there at least monthly there with Dylan discussing our favorite matches of that month. Sometimes we do, off-topic shows about, certain drafts. It's always a good time on the Eastern Lariat Patreon.
That's right. So patreon.com/Eastern Lariat. I'm a subscriber myself, so I get to check out all this content. You should be too if you love Japanese wrestling. I don't think there's a finer place to get news, reviews, analysis of Japanese wrestling than the Eastern Lariat with Striga, Dylan Fox, and of course, Rob here. Any final thoughts from you?
No, just thanks so much for asking me to be on the show. It was a real privilege to get the call from WH and get my research going and get to flex the wrestling brain and have this conversation with you.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on board. And I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank everyone else for being able to support the show, enjoying the show and seeing nice things about it whenever we tweet out a new episode. And keep it dialed into post wrestling. We got so much amazing stuff coming out. And for this particular show, we have some plans. We'll see if they, bear fruit, as it were. And I'm excited about some of the upcoming content that I have planned for, say, June. I have something planned. We'll see if it gets executed, the way I want it to. But June is going to be a great episode. And then, I'm going to try to have as many new first-time guests like Rob here on the Long and Winding Road for 2022. But in the meantime, thanks for everyone for listening. You can follow me at WHPark9. You can follow me on all my content over at postwrestling.com. And until next time, I will say goodbye.